everyone please take a seat or not? I don't care. I don't need a microphone, so I don't know if anyone else will. Hi, I'm Bernie McKinnon. I've known these two Chris's for many years. I've been around in politics in Connecticut for about 50 years and maybe a little more. And it's a great pleasure for me to stand here and do something that I wish I had done a long time ago. I thought about running, but I do it through other candidates. It's a lot easier than running yourself, but not always. And I hope Murphy gets a real mean campaign manager who treats the candidate, Murphy, that Murphy, not this one, like he treated all the candidates he was campaign manager for. I've been a member of CCAG and on the board of directors for many years, and I was a political director of the UAW for all New England, New York, and Puerto Rico for a few years. Then I went to Washington as a legislative rep, and I've worked with these two gentlemen for many years. And I would first like to tell you that Chris Murphy has been a good friend to labor, to the working people, and to everyone in general. He's a hard worker. He's committing, or very well committed, to putting Connecticut back to work by helping to pass critical infrastructure investment legislation. He also recently got an amendment to a Defense Department bill that states that America, or the government, should buy American. And years ago, that's all we did was buy American for the Defense Department. Now, I don't know what the percentage is of goods for a Defense Department that are made in other countries, and should something happen with our relationship with those countries, we wouldn't even be able to build our own defense equipment. So I'm glad that Chris's amendment passed, and before the Pentagon buys things now, they have to make sure that American jobs matter, and that by giving defense contracts to foreign countries, they're putting Americans out of work, using taxpayer dollars in other countries, which is taking money away from our own people in our own country. I know that Chris will fight when he gets to the Senate, because we've all seen how he's fought in the past, both in trying to help Charlotte Koskoff make it to Washington for a few terms, and then working in the state house here in Connecticut, working in the state Senate, and for the last few years working in Washington. He's done a great job at all of these. In all of the things that we are interested in, he's been very good at working at. So whether it was health care or jobs or any other thing that he's done during his career in Washington. So I'd like to introduce Chris, like everyone here doesn't know him, you know.
Isabel.
Oh, and I'd like to introduce Isabel to talk about Chris Donovan. Chris Murphy too? Oh, okay.
No, just Chris Murphy. I'll give a brief. Thank
You
you.
did it after. Everybody does this to these
Sorry,
guys.
you do twice. You do twice.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Isabel Carrasquillo, and I am on the board of CCAG. I'm also the treasurer of the Connecticut Hispanic Democratic Caucus, and we have recently endorsed Chris as well. We're here today. CCAG joins proudly the thousands and thousands of people across Connecticut that have already endorsed Chris. If you want to know what kind of senator Chris will be, look at his incredible work record as our congressman. Chris has a strong partnership with the Latino community in his district. He has ensured funding for the Danbury Hispanic Center. He has ensured funding for the Pathways Scenarios in Britain. He's fighting to strengthen Connecticut's middle class. He's fighting to protect Medicare, Social Security, and the Republicans want to destroy. He's fighting to bring back jobs to Connecticut with his tireless work on Buy American. He's fighting for women's rights when Republicans tried to bring us back to the 1950s. He's fighting with Joe Courtney to ensure that student loans, interest rates don't double on July 1st. Some candidates talk about fighting for jobs, education, health care, ethics reform. Chris is doing that work right now. Chris is the strongest candidate in the race. Chris is the clear choice for us. Let's send Chris Murphy to the United States Senate. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to the CCAG board, to all of my friends who I've been proud to work with for now going on a decade and a half. You know, I sort of look at this endorsement in this way. You know, I've been now in politics in Hartford and in Washington for about 15 years. And what I've seen is that the big banks have their lobbyists, that the big insurance companies have their lobbyists, that the big drug companies have their lobbyists. CCAG is everybody else's lobbyist. CCAG is the voice for people that can't afford to have a voice in Hartford or in Washington. CCAG is the group that sticks up for the average man or woman out there who is getting screwed on a daily basis by a system designed to enrich a handful of elites at the expense of everybody else. And the fights that I've been most proud to wage over the last 15 years have been those that I've fought side by side with CCAG. And I want to talk about just a couple of those today. I want to go back to my time in the state legislature. We are a state that has a lot of jobs that come to us through the drug industry, but we have a lot of people who can't afford the drugs that they produce. And it was a controversial stance to take on the drug industry, to say that seniors in the state should be able to import drugs from Canada rather than paying top prices here in the United States. It was a controversial position to say that drug companies should be forced to disclose their marketing and advertising costs so we know exactly how much we're paying for those fancy ads on TV. And when I introduced those bills as a member of the Public Health Committee, I had very few people who were willing to stand with me. It was CCAG who did it. It was people like Gretchen Vivier and Suzanne Haviland, and Tom Swan and John Murphy who were there. When I got to the state legislature as a 25-year-old, I just raised $25,000, which to me was an ungodly amount of money to have to raise to run for office. I now have to raise that about every hour to run for the United States Senate. And the first bill that I introduced when I got there was a bill to publicly fund state elections, a position that not a lot of people held in 1998, 1999, but CCAG did. CCAG led the fight to put Connecticut on the map as one of the few states that has stood up and said, we're going to have regular people in this state fund elections rather than moneyed interests. And we have cleaner elections today because of it. We have cleaner government because of it. We're a model now, I think, for the nation as we try to do the same thing at the federal level. If we had an entity like the CCAG in Washington with the kind of power there that it holds in Connecticut, this country would be a better place. And this endorsement is so meaningful in this race because of the moral authority that comes through CCAG and the issues that they work on, but also the political power that comes with CCAG. CCAG is an army of activists, of volunteers, and voices. I think that my election becomes a little bit more likely today because people are going to believe in me because CCAG believes in me, but because more people will hear about me because CCAG will make sure that that happens. So I couldn't be prouder to stand here and accept this endorsement. We have a fight on our hands over the next 5 years in Washington. We're making a decision as to whether we are going to sort of come into a new gilded age in this country where there's 5% of haves and 95% have nothings. And whether or not we invest in road building, whether or not we invest in education, whether or not we invest in job retraining, those are the questions that are going to decide whether or not we have a fair economy in which everybody has a chance to prosper, or whether we turn into an economy in which only a handful of elites do well. Is that me or Donovan that just fell down? I'm confident that we're going to win this fight on behalf of the middle class and on behalf of consumers, but I'm more confident because I know the power of CCAG. Last thing to say is this. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I have a feeling they're going to endorse Chris Donovan in a couple seconds too. You know, I had the privilege of serving with Chris Donovan in the state legislature for all 8 years that I was there, and there was no greater leader for consumers and for the middle class than Chris Donovan. He's a unique voice on behalf of the issues that CCAG cares about and the people of the state of Connecticut care about. And I'm really proud to be standing here with him today. If he's the choice of the Democrats this September, he's going to make a great candidate, and he's going to make a fantastic congressman. So to CCAG, thank you for everything you've done on behalf of the people of the state of Connecticut. Thank you for your support for me. Thank you for your support for Chris Donovan, and let's go out there and win one over the next 6 months.
I'm Tom Swan, I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Citizen Action Group, and I want to state unequivocally that CCAG is as excited about these two races as any race we've ever been involved with in our 40 years. We know that sending these two public officials to Washington to represent us will round out what will be unquestionably the best delegation any state could possibly send to Washington. Chris, in telling some of your stories, it reminds me, when Chris was first thinking of running for the state legislature, there was a meeting convened by David Pudlin here in New Britain at Great Taste, that John and I and John Garagosian and Chris and Art Perry sat down to talk about the feasibility of his race and what it would take as a young person to be able to run that race. And it's amazing to see how quickly he's progressed and what he's accomplished in a short period of time. And then also with Chris Donovan, since we're doing both of these, having once worked for CCAG as an organizer here in New Britain, and with our history and being tied back to one of our founding board members, Laddie Michalowski, being based out of here, it's symbolically important, and I hope people understand the significance for us of choosing this location for moving forward. Chris also talked about the prescription drug bill that he introduced and passed. It was groundbreaking. It shifted the terms of debate nationally. And he was the public health chair in the Senate, just like Terry Giarratana from New Britain is now. But he also had allies in the House, like Chris Donovan, that were pushing it along. And probably our proudest accomplishment are the coalition work that we did in the passage of the campaign finance reform legislation, where we worked with a whole range of people that happened. But today we're here, and I'm really proud that we're endorsing you, Chris. Your work both in the legislature and in Congress has been phenomenal. To be elected and within your first term have all those special sessions and all around campaign finance reform where we finally delivered. And then you moved to Washington, and first item that he passed was an independent ethics board that he had a force and really changed the way that Washington operated. And your continued fight on behalf of the middle class. I want to make clear that one of the reasons we're endorsing Chris Murphy is his support and commitment to public finance. I know that there are opponents of his who are trying to portray him as being less than a friend of public financing, but I can guarantee you one thing, that if Chris Murphy chose to run for Attorney General and that the Citizens Election Program was available to him to operate under, Chris Murphy would run as a clean money candidate, no questions asked. That type of hypocrisy is not what we need in Washington, where a candidate says they're in favor of public financing and then chooses not to engage in it. We need principled fighters who will say what they believe, do what they say, that they'll walk the talk. And we're proud to stand here with 2 Chris's today that are going to do it. So Chris, we commit that between now and August 14th, we're going to communicate with all of our members across the state, work to engage them and involve them in the political process, and to do broader efforts in voter education to make sure you're a U.S. Senate candidate. To move things along, I'm now going to talk about the other Chris. A Chris that was elected to the House less than a year before I assumed the position of Executive Director of the Connecticut Citizen Action Group. Over the last 18 years, there has not been a single person that has done more within the state to advance CCAG's issue agenda, particularly within the state legislature. We would not have won campaign finance reform in Connecticut if Chris Speaker was not the majority leader of the House at the time. That is not to be questioned, and anybody within the building would not question it. His commitment to health care, his commitment to making sure that work pays and that people can work and live with dignity is unquestioned by anybody. His commitment to organizing and actually involving people in his races and all will make him both an excellent Congress member for the 5th Congressional District, similar to the way that Chris Murphy was, but is also how he's going to win this November. We don't need somebody that's going to be saying that they're a Democrat light running in the general election. We need someone that's committed to fighting for the 99%, standing up for the 99%, and that has a track record of building the types of coalitions and alliances that Chris Donovan has and will do in Congress in order to bring back, to make sure that the 5th Congressional District continues to be a beacon of hope in what otherwise, up until for the last few years, has been a nightmare of a Congress. We think that the Democrats will take back Congress this year, will maintain control of the Senate, that we will re-elect Barack Obama, and that the next 4 years will make these 4 years look much, much better and much more hopeful in terms of for working people. So I want to introduce Chris Donovan and pledge to both of the Chris's that CCAG will do everything in our power to make sure that next January, when President Obama is getting re-sworn in, that the 2 of you have the best party in all of Washington, D.C. with your new offices. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the Connecticut Citizen Action Group for their endorsement. It's a real pleasure, and as Tom said, it's a pleasure to be here in New Britain. I'm going to Washington because I believe that everybody should be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. So I'm going to fight every day for your right to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, and the right of every American to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. That's what we need in Washington. And that's what CCAG has done over the many years. It's what about health care? What about voter rights? What about equality? What about the environment? They're looking out for people, make sure people are treated fairly. And so that's why it's so important to have their endorsement. I want to thank them for all their work. I want to thank my colleague Chris Murphy. As he said, we worked in the General Assembly. We worked together as a team. He was a tremendous leader as a state rep. You know, he went to all the hearings and stayed to the very end to find out what was going on. And then he became a senator. He worked on some tremendous issues in the state, a real leader. And then as a congressman, he's been tremendous, working on the issues we care so much about. You know, looking out for American jobs, looking out for America, looking out for health care, being a real leader. And I want to thank them. I want to thank him for all the work he's done to look after people and give that fairness, dignity, respect to people in our country. That's tremendous. So thank you, Chris, for that. And you know, what we're seeing in Washington is we're seeing not the Chris Murphys, not the Chris Donovans. We're seeing Republican leaders saying people don't deserve Social Security and Medicare. we'll give you a voucher, good luck finding your health care. We're seeing them saying to women, you know, we don't think you deserve dignity, respect, and fairness. We're not going to give you the health care that you have as a right. We're seeing Republican leaders saying jobs in America, let's see what happens. We will vote against jobs bills for the people in our country. And when it comes to taxes, we're not going to ask those who make the millions to pay their fair share. That's not fairness, dignity, and respect. That's why I'm going to Washington, to fight for the people in the community, like the people who are supported by Connecticut Citizen Action Group, to fight for the fairness, dignity, respect for the people in our country. That's what it's all about. That's what people are looking for. They're looking for someone who says, I get it. I understand that you're looking for jobs, Social Security, Medicare, healthcare. Those are things we all want. And I couldn't ask for a better group than Connecticut Citizen Action Group, as Tom said. We worked together. I started out, my hair was a little darker, a little longer, and I worked right down the street on Arch Street as an intern for the Britain Citizen Action Group. And then I worked in Meriden with the Meriden Citizen Action Group. I worked in Waterbury with the Waterbury Citizen Action Group and the Danbury Citizen Action Group. So I worked going door to door, talking to people, listening to what